If you have an interest in horses and love learning more about horses, the horse industry, teaching, or even managing your own horse business, then you're in the right place. We would love you to join us on our mission, which is to improve the lives of horses around the world through the education of riders, handlers, and trainers. So get comfortable, listen in, and enjoy.
Our guest today is Ian Francis. Now, if you haven't heard of Ian Francis, which I'm sure that most people will have, Ian Francis is a master in horsemanship and horse education. He's had a competitive career of over 30 years in AQHA events, working cow horse, reining, cutting, Stockman's Challenge. Ian's been conducting clinics for the past 6 years. I'm sure it's a bit more now, to educate people in horsemanship, reining, and cattle-related events like camp drafting. Ian's a legend amongst Australian horsemen and often described as the best horseman in the world because Ian has trained more horses and received more awards in more events than any other horseman in Australia. I was going to say this country's ever seen, but in Australia, if we're talking about that. So, Ian, you've come as a legend in front of us. How are you anyway?
Yeah, I'm great, thank you.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
I know you're a real person underneath all that legend stuff. So, hopefully we'll have a good chat today and you'll give us some of your expertise about horses. But before we start with that, I just want to remind people about International Horse College. Podcast is brought to you by International Horse College, and horse welfare and safety are of utmost importance to us at International Horse College, which is why we've included them in our value statements. Within our wide variety of horse courses, we only utilise methods that promote safe and humane methods of interaction between horses and humans, supporting only safe methods of educating riders, handlers and trainers. Have a look now at the online courses at internationalhorsecollege.com, registered training organisation number 31352. Now, Ian, if you've listened to any of our podcasts at all, you know that I like to start off asking new guests about their favourite quote. So have you got one for us today?
You know, I got several, I guess, and these things I put up on my walls.
Yes.
Even before I started in the horse business, I had these things up, some of these things up, and to keep me motivated and keep me on track. And the one I put up there when I first started my horse business was, only those that risk going too far can find how far they can go. And just because I'm a little bit conservative, or I was back then, and a little bit to where I had self-doubts about my abilities and so forth and so on. So that was the first one. And then in a training sense, I had, if you keep doing what you're doing, you keep getting what you're getting. And that is to remind myself that, things are not going great. You better think about changing some stuff, And then there was, for the horse part of it, we need to take the high pressure areas and turn them into comfort zones. So there are three that I, for different reasons have meaning for me.
Okay. And I think that sort of gives us a bit of a good mix. Now, you're really focusing on AQHA events, working cow horse, reining, cutting, Stockman's Challenge. How did you get into that area of horsemanship?
Originally I never set out to be a horseman or horse trainer as an occupation. It didn't really exist back when I started. I'm talking about in the 60s.
Yep.
Only horse trainers then were racehorse trainers and trotting trainers.
I think the horse industry has evolved quite a lot since then, hasn't it? You would have seen all the involvement. Yes, it's much more of a real career now rather than just a bit of a hobby that you might make some money with.
Yeah, there was no real career so much back then. There wasn't a business formed around it back then. So, as you say, it's evolved quite a lot since then.
But what started you? Because you said that the only trainers were really, racing and trotting, like harness racing.
Yeah, okay. Well, I started off thinking my career was going to be in the cattle industry. And horses were a part of the cattle industry. And I went out into the North Burnet and places like that, and I got into working on properties, and eventually got into property management and so forth, but always taking jobs where I could take my own horses and utilise them, and then I would start a horse and bring it along and sell it to somebody as as a bit of a supplement for my income. But the beef depression turned up in about 1974, and that sort of forced me out. Well, it didn't force me out. I still had a job in the rural sector, but I had some people approach me about going and manage a newly developed quarter horse stud called Calora Quarter Horses. They approached me about going and managing that. They knew that I was reasonably handy around horses, and they offered me that job for a 2-year contract, just to wait and see how long the cattle slump might last. So that brought me out and brought me into the industry in a professional sense, and I started showing their horses. And by the time that 2 years was out, I was getting a lot of success, and so that the interest in having me work horses followed me home. So that's kind of how it evolved, yes.
Okay. Now, if someone wants to get involved in the horse industry, and as we've said, it's changed quite a lot, over the last however long you've been in it, but thinking about not necessarily their horse knowledge, but their core skills and character traits, the type of person they would have to be successful in the horse industry. I'm just thinking those, and I don't know if I got it right, only those who risk going too far can ever find out, what too far is. Is that the correct, did I get that completely right or not?
Yes, it is.
Yeah. So the type, I mean, having that up on the wall almost determines what sort of a person you were to get in the horse industry to be successful. But for someone else, what sort of person would they need to be successful in the horse industry?
Well, I made a couple of notes on in that direction, and I thought, some say this might be obvious, but I think they need to like horses for a start. I wonder sometimes with folk that are working horses that may be there because they enjoy being able to dominate big animals and so forth, and want to use fear and the like to get by on, and so they're pretty hard on them. And I think liking them would be a nice place to start. They want to be someone with a really strong work ethic. One of the deals at my place was the people that succeed get up earlier, stay later, and do more than they got to do.
Yep.
That's just from a straight business sense. A desire to improve your knowledge, or learn more about horses, learn about how they function, learn about what conformation will lend them to stay sound. You learn more about techniques, because something that works on 9/10 and won't work on all of them sometimes.
Yep.
Communication skills are really something to be thought about, because horses can't write a check. It's you're going to have the owners write you a check. So being able to communicate with people. Yep. There's so many of us that ride horses really well at horses and be left the hell alone. But you can't run a business like that. You've got to be able to communicate, and better if you can. And the other thing, I think it seems a bit strange, but reasonably high pain tolerance is a threshold is pretty good too, because awful lot of the time you're going to be working sore, and if you're going to get hearted about getting out and going when you're a little sore, then probably you're not going to survive in the job. So I think there are some attributes that will help.
I think they're quite well thought out. I think, just sort of being in the horse industry myself, I think, liking horses. And I do think that sometimes people, I don't know, they get to a stage where they forget why they entered the industry. You enter the industry because you like horses, and I think you've got to keep that with you. If you've realised that you don't like horses, then you shouldn't be in the industry. Yeah. Okay. Now, what about the people who excel in the horse industry? Is there anything in particular? It might be, something out of these, any one thing out of this, or anything else they need to bring to the party to be one of the best, to be a legend?
I think there's nothing more important than the desire to succeed.
Yep.
I think that's really high on the list. And other than that, I haven't really thought that through a whole lot. I spent my whole life trying to get to a position of prominence and trying to stay there.
Yep.
And that just, to me, it was about being able to attract a high caliber of horse and having a really high work ethic. And if I didn't have a competitive horse, I wouldn't go to a contest. I would stay home and work on next year.
Okay.
But that's not everybody's approach, but that was mine.
Yeah. Now, thinking about, in the early days, you started off in the cattle industry and kept working with horses, but going back then or even since then, is there anyone that you'd say, gee, I really learned a lot from that particular person, or maybe there's a couple?
Oh, there's several people. There was a man called Barry Whittaker way back when I was a kid. I didn't start off in the horse industry. My parents weren't interested. They would, when I was a little kid, I was always absorbed with horses, and we'd drive down the road and I'd be saying, there's a blue one, oh, look, there's and they'd roll their eyes and oh, God, here we go again kind of deal.
Yep.
And they weren't just a bit interested, but for me to get involved in the horse industry, I used to just go make myself really useful to anybody that lived within bicycle riding distance of home, and make myself useful to them and try and be around the people that were involved with horses and cattle and the like. And that's how I started. Well, I spent a lot of from when I was about 12 or 13 through to I was 19 with a family called Whittakers at Maryborough. And the eldest of those boys, Barry, was he used to start some colts, and he was pretty good at getting by with a young colt. And he was the first bloke I saw that could put what I call a signature on horses. A lot of us who around, if you ride our horses, there's something distinctive about them, and we put a bit of a signature on our horses. And you can tell little about them. You can pick who started that horse when you're riding with those kind of people. Well, Barry was that way, and he was, rather than kind of laugh at and ridicule me, which kind of happened a lot when you're a kid like that, he would encourage you, So he was the first guy. And then the next fella I ran into that really took my attention was a man called Leary Boss. And he'd come out from Nevada and was a high-level man-cat horse trainer and competitor in the United States. He'd won the very big events when the Cow Palace in America was the maker of that kind of deal. And he came out here to be a cattleman, but also to supplement his income, started doing clinics. And I think he's the man that probably influenced me the most in the techniques and the style I use.
Just say his name again, Ian.
Leary Boss.
Okay.
Yeah. And he was mostly up around Queensland. He did travel down south a little bit, but there were mostly some Queenslanders like myself and Ken May and Gordon McKinley and Wally Ray and people like that had the opportunity to be around Lee. There'd have been others too, but they're the ones that come to mind that were influenced strongly by what he did. And he also had a great attitude about not holding back any information. Like, he wasn't really concerned. He would tell you everything he knew about what you were asking about, because he didn't feel intimidated and about maybe you beating him down the road somewhere.
Yep.
In fact, he rather thought that was a compliment, So he, I think, had the most influence. And then an Australian guy called Johnny Stanton, who's a lot of people certainly in the camp draft industry know. And I think he's something like 8 times ABCRA camp draft rider of the year on about 6 different horses. So he's qualified for an opinion. And not so much on horses so much, but he gave me an awful lot of good advice along the way. And so they were the 3 fellas and there have been others. A man called Laurie Headings helped start me into the camp draft industry, but they're the most significant.
Okay. Now, I'm sure that there's been a few horses that have helped you, influenced in your career, but is there a standout?
Yeah, a couple. The first horse that really helped me was a horse called King's Gold, and he was the first quarter horse that I had to work with, and I always had jobs in the rural sector where I had my own horses, and when I took on management jobs, I could manage my own time a bit, somewhat more. So if I went to check windmills or check calving cows and stuff like that, I'd go horseback, and I could spend a little time cheat for a bit of time here and there and work on educating them some. And I learned a lot from that horse. I tried every damn technique known to man on him. And there's a man called Chilicini that was around Queensland and Australia. He was quite a legend. He was also a pretty caustic old boy. And someone asked him one day what he thought of the combination of myself and the horse, because we were doing pretty good. And he said, Ian's made him 4 times and messed him up 5. And that's kind of how it went a bit. You know, I got to try, and he was very forgiving, but also a fairly talented critter. And, that was way back. It was very early on, in the early 70s, I'm thinking. Very early 70s. And so he's also learned an awful lot off. Spindle was another mare, that won the 91 cutting futurity for me. She taught me a lot about working cattle, just her style and her ability and her ability to read cattle and the way she handled them, the way she positioned herself to handle them. I learned a heck of a lot off her. And, you know, there's been a couple of the more significant ones in more recent times, like One Hell of a Spin and One Rome Pet. So it's almost impossible if you're reasonably astute not to learn something from those great areas.
Now, going back and thinking about the awards you've won and even horses that you've trained and people that you've helped, but is there one moment that you can pinpoint that you say, well, this is my proudest moment?
Oh, that's really hard, because I've been fortunate enough to ride a lot of outstanding horses and fortunate enough also to win a lot of significant events. And one thing that always I look back on and think I didn't get to enjoy those big moments as much as I should, because I always had goals happening, and I was always I was showing an awful lot of events. So a lot of times I might be at the rank hours for charity and win that, and while the presentations are going on, I'm already thinking, well, gee, I've got to be on the road to Cloncurry. I've got to be there in 3 days' time. Yeah. You know, and there was always the next thing that I had to get ready for. So while the presentation's on, I'm already thinking about, you know, what is the next thing I got to be at, and how much time do I have, and what have I got to do? And so I didn't, and I don't drink alcohol, so I'm not much of a party man. So looking back, I think I didn't really get to enjoy the big moments like a lot of people do. And this is going to sound a bit negative, and I don't mean it to, but you know, I had a period in about 1974 when 1984, 2004, when I had some very disappointing stuff that happened in my life, really set me back some. And some people who I thought a lot of decided that I'd reached my use-by date. And so I kind of, I came back in 2005 with a mare called Gidgey Coles and won the NCHA futurity, and I think I won 2 more of the major futurities and was reserving another one. So she became the highest money-earning horse to, futurity age horse, and put me as the highest placed Australian on the list of cutting money earners. And so I felt really good about that, because I went through some time that, when I was really down, and was able to come back and pick myself up and go back and bump some heads and kick some butts. And so I don't know whether that's stuff you should celebrate, but I did feel pretty good about that, yeah.
Good. Now, you said about, your use-by date, that would have been a challenge, and you've had challenges, but this is money aside, just thinking about people working in the horse industry, and you in particular, your biggest challenge on getting where you were going, was your biggest challenge people saying, about that use-by date, or were there other challenges that you want to talk about? And because I'm going to ask you how you overcame them as well, because, we're thinking about education and learning, and if people are in another situation, they might be in a similar situation, what they can do to overcome it.
Well, the biggest challenge for me was overcoming lack of self-confidence, lack of self-esteem, getting to believe in myself.
Mm-hmm.
That was probably the biggest challenge I really faced, because I'm a bit introverted and so forth, and and just I'm not sure how it really evolved, but it evolved. As a kid, I didn't have too much self-esteem. I didn't have too much self-confidence, and it was very easy if someone that I perceived to be better than I was or more successful, if they were dismissive or ridiculed you in some way, it was very easy for me to become discouraged,
Mm-hmm.
So the thing that helped me most come out of that was when I went to work for a mob called Kingston Rural Management, where they used to do a fair bit of goal seeking, pinpointing what you wanted to achieve and work what you wanted to achieve. And fortunately for me, there were some people lived next door called Rob and Val Irvine, and Rob was a bloke that he decided when he was, I think, about 34, that he was going to work for 12 months, and then I think it was 12 months, and was he going to work for 10 years and he was going to retire? That's what he did, and he did it. I mean, he just did that, and I asked him one day how he did that, and he gave me a motivation tape by a fellow called Earl Nightingale, called The Strangest Secret in the World.
Wow.
And he was telling me that he was a car salesman, and they had some stuff in real estate going on. He used to get kind of anxious on Monday night. If he hadn't sold a car by Monday night, he would put this thing under his pillow and play it over and over to himself during the night. And he said it never failed. He sold the car next day, whatever it did to his confidence. So he gave me that, and really all it says is that people become what they think about all day long. That your mind's a fertile field, and it'll grow whatever you plant. It'll grow deadly nightshade, or it'll grow a crop of corn. Whatever you plant, there's what it's going to grow. And all the great philosophers and the Bible says that as you think, so will it be done unto you, and stuff like that. Yeah. And so all the successful people have said this in one way or another. And so they got me into positive thinking, and they got me into goal seeking and motivation, and then I discovered that this stuff works. If you pinpoint something you want to achieve and you work on it every day, and you become so focused on that, you exclude a lot of the negative stuff or the stuff that interferes or inhibits with it. That it just proved to me time and time again that works, that's achievable. So that's what really helped me along, and then understanding along the way that those other people that you're competing against, they've only got two arms and two legs, the same as you got.
Yep.
And all the great start where everyone else starts, you'll start with one step going in a direction. So it was changing my thinking. John Kingston said to me one day, you're not going to get anywhere until you change your thinking. Mm-hmm. And I wrote a note for myself about to change your life, you've got to change your attitude.
Yep.
So that became one of my catch phrases. I need to change my attitude about myself. Don't be thinking that you're inferior to those people, or they're in some way superior. Mm-hmm. And that took an awful lot of. It took a long time. Put it that way.
Yeah. And for people, if you are interested, that is available now on YouTube, free of charge. So certainly, not having to go through to find someone that can mentor you, that can give you a tape that you can listen to again and again. It's a matter of simply, going to YouTube and typing in Earl Nightingale and The Strangest Secret, and that full audio book will come up. And I think Earl Nightingale has gone on, and he mentored quite a few people who've then gone and mentored quite a few people. So he certainly was a bit of a grandfather, I think, of motivational speaking. Yeah.
And there's a lot of that stuff out there, and it's so great today because we got, DVD players and whatever else where you can plug that stuff in when you're going to contests and get your mind on that kind of a track rather than on another track.
Yeah. Yeah. Now, if you were going out to do a workshop, do a clinic, new place, you've never been there before, mixture of horses and riders, you went through the day and you just go, yep, these are just like all the other people I teach. If you had a common fault that you see with riders, trainers, handlers, what would it be? And also too, not just what it is, because I'm sure that you see quite a lot, but how are people going to fix it? Because whatever you see, if it's a common thing that you see when you do clinics, there's going to be quite a few of our listeners that might have that problem as well.
Yeah. Sometimes I think it's the just ability to apply themselves. Quite a lot of people when they go to clinics, if you're not dealing with their specific problem, they're really not that interested. And, they'll tend to be off chatting to each other or something like that. And I always think that's rather strange. You've paid them and you assuming you're never going to have a horse with the problem this particular person has. So sometimes I think that's a restrictive deal for a lot of people. And also, people come to clinics for so many different reasons. Some of them are genuinely looking to learn. Some of them because it's a social event for them. I never want to be that good, but I want to say I've been to that person's clinic.
Yep.
Some of them just to show you how good their horse is going and show everybody else how good their horse is going.
Yep.
So there's some kids are there because mum and dad are sick of them on the holidays and want to get them the hell out of the place. So there's an awful lot of different reasons for people to be there, and quite often I'll strike someone in an airport or somewhere else, and they come and reintroduce themselves, and I'll say, oh yes, a lot of times I will remember. And how's your horse going? Oh well, we haven't been on him since.
Yes.
And, okay, I don't understand that.
Yep.
So just the ability to really apply yourself to what you're doing. And then there's another deal where a lot of people, when you go to tell them something, they want to talk over the top of you, and they haven't figured out the knowledge of those, and then their head through an open mouth.
Yeah.
So a bit of that goes on too.
Yeah.
But my approach is just to go and put as much information as I possibly can out, and as Lieber Boss would say, each one gets his cup full. When by that I interpret he's saying that once you fill someone's head up with a certain amount of new knowledge and trying to put it more in there's probably a waste of time. Yeah.
All right. I think just thinking about goal setting and everything else, I didn't ask you with your goal setting. What are you working on now?
I'm working on. I guess I'm still going to keep teaching while people are interested enough to listen, and my health stays reasonably good. But I am working on some stuff with. I've worked my way into a few cattle properties and working on developing those, and I'm working on developing a really nice herd of cattle. So I'm a little ways along in that. So and what I find for myself is that. As much as I've been doing as many as 50 clinics a year from 2010 until last year, and I cut back just slightly, that I can come home, and because I got involvement in those things, I don't really need to go have holidays because I get refreshed by my interest in what I got going on at home, and then that in turn refreshes me to go back on the road again. So. And people who have been to clinics will tell you sometimes he gets tired on the road and sometimes he does get cranky.
Okay. Now, Ian, you're doing clinics in Australia, New Zealand, US. If someone contacted you from somewhere else and said, look, we've got enough people here, we can make it viable for you to come over. Are you interested in doing clinics anywhere else? This is for our listeners, just in case they're thinking, oh, what a shame that you don't live near me. Basically, if they say, well, we've got enough people together here who are interested in getting clinics, are you able to organise it?
Yeah, if we got time to spare within the period that interests them, most certainly. Probably I'm looking a little bit, as I get a little bit longer in the tooth, I'm looking at not having to do so many commuting flights to get to the back of beyond.
Yes.
Because I'm a bit jealous about how I spend my time now. It seems like I seem to be running short of time, and I'm a bit more jealous about how. Whereas one time I would just go and go and go.
Yep.
But now, if it takes me a couple of changes of flights, and I've got to finish up getting somewhere on the back of one of those little, I'm not sure what you call those little hovercraft or something.
Oh yeah, I know. Yep. Yep.
If I got to finish up going somewhere on the back of one of them, I'm not going. You know, if I can get somewhere with a direct flight or maybe one change of flight,
yep.
But because what happens, it uses way too much of your time.
Yes, you're right. Yep. Now, tell us your contact details if people do want to contact you.
Well, our email deal is ianfrancis@skymesh.com.au.
Yep.
And then on Facebook, of course.
Mm-hmm.
And my the house phone number here is 0741 685 444.
Okay. So if Facebook, it is, what's it, Ian Francis Horsemanship, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yep. Okay, and ianfrancishorsemanship.com.au if you for website, and if you miss those contact details, and also horsechats.com, just go there and search for Ian, search for Francis, or search for Ian Francis, and at the bottom of Ian's page you'll find all his contact details there. Ian, if you're going to, just in a sentence or two, summarise your philosophy with horses, what would it be?
My philosophy with horses? My approach is to try and get them really comfortable and composed, and understanding all that I want, rather than just reacting to all the things I want. The more I can, and I'm trying to work with them, their mind. Like I would say, people would say to me, "What do you think about this bit or that bit or some other bit?" And my response to that is, I'd sooner put a bit on their mind. I'd sooner, get them to understand that if I pick up this rein, they soften that direction. I pick up that one, they soften that direction. Pick up both, they get vertical and stuff like that. And trying to get all those horses really, really composed about what they do, so they think about what they're doing rather than just react. Mm-hmm. So that kind of that approach. And the other thing I've tried to do is when I'm fortunate enough to find really talented ones, and I've done that quite a lot over the years. Try not to waste those talented ones. Try to give them the best opportunity to be the greatest they can be. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So pretty much that's my approach.
Right. Yeah, I think wonderful. Look, it's been very good talking to you. I think we've been trying to get hold of you for a little while, so, great talking to you, and hopefully we'll come back and have another chat soon. But thank you very much for your time today, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
Okay, well, thank you, and I appreciate you thinking of me. Thank you.
Okay. If you've enjoyed this chat, then please comment, rate and subscribe. If you'd like any changes or recommendations for guests, then please contact us through horsechats.com. And while you're online, have a look at the government-accredited courses at internationalhorsecollege.com. Registered Training Organisation 31352.
Remember that our comments and instructions are general in nature and do not take into consideration your individual horses or your individual ability and circumstances. If you enjoyed this podcast, then please leave your comment below.